What's up guys, War History Geek here, and welcome back to another new acquisitions video. Now today we're going to be talking about items that I've purchased between May and July of 2023. And there's a lot of, pretty standard items, and then there's a lot of really awesome items that I'm happy to add to the collection as well. So let's just get right into it. So starting out here, we have this collection of World War I images and posters that I purchased on Facebook Marketplace. Now they're pretty coiled up inside here, so I'm not going to uncoil them here. I might post some pictures of them, but as you can see, we have a World War I era yard long, and I apologize for it being upside down. And then what made this grouping particularly interesting to me is that we have a second yard long here of the exact same unit, but of the reunion from 1940 in Columbus, Ohio. So that yard long photo from before is a World War I unit from Ohio, and that's the original yard long from the First World War. And then that second yard long I just showed you is the yard long taken of the remaining members at their reunion in 1940. So I thought that that was a super interesting grouping, which I've never seen before. In here we have about 3 or 4 other photographs that are possibly related. They came from the same person. She said they're from the same family. However, I don't know if there's any connection. There's no writing or anything. And then inside here, as I was saying, is 2 coiled up posters, and these are original to the First World War. These are soldiers, like poems and stuff like that, and creeds. So again, I will post some pictures up here if I get a chance to unroll them, but they're super cool. I only paid $40 for the whole set of these, which, first of all, the yard long alone is definitely worth at least half that. And then you have the reunion one as well. I think that that was an incredible buy. And then these posters, in the condition that they're in, besides being rolled up, go for $100 to $200 a piece. So I got a really great deal on these. Again, I'm sorry I can't display them better. It's just they're fragile and they're rolled up, and I don't want to risk damaging them. Now, moving along here, this is a book that I picked up at a garage sale. Nothing particularly special. The Nations at War, A Current History. This is a book in a pretty rough condition, as you can see. But if we flip to the copyright page, well, I guess it's actually lacking the copyright page, but when I looked this up, this is an original World War I era book. I paid $1 for it at a garage sale, and I thought that was a pretty good price. So, again, not a incredible find, but definitely something nice for the collection. And then at the same garage sale, I picked up this Life magazine issue from 1940. Again, nothing crazy, not in great condition either, just something interesting there that I thought I'd add to the collection. Again, I only paid like $1. And then moving along here, we have some more interesting pieces. So this is a grouping of 3 booklets that I picked up from a woman on Facebook Marketplace local to me. I paid $5 for the 3 of them, and some of them are pretty interesting. So this one here is the Intelligence Bulletin from April 1946. Here you can see it's from the Military Intelligence Division from the War Department, and that this book is not to be published and for use of military personnel only. And this entire edition is talking about World War II era German guided missiles. So this I thought was super interesting. This is what originally caught my eye. Now, this is a publicly available book now. There's PDF copies of it published on the internet that you can view. But I thought that this was super cool, and I wanted to pick this up, and I got it for like next to nothing. Now, this is honestly not really anything that interests me. This is just a history of the Second World War, image book, probably from like the 1960s or 70s. I might save this, for some photographs or articles or whatever, but beyond that, there's not really any historical significance there. And then this was the other thing that caught my eye. This is the Anti-Aircraft album of APO 244. So this is a unit album from World War II. Again, I paid $5 for the 3 of these, and it looks like I found an identical one in better condition selling for $20 or $30 on eBay. Now, of course, since this is a smaller unit, I'd imagine it's probably not all that particularly important. However, unit albums like this are pretty hard to come by, especially for these smaller, less common units. So I'm going to do a little more research on this. I haven't done any research on this unit. I don't know if it was particularly involved in any important battles or on an important ship or, whatever. So I thought this was a cool pickup. I'm going to maybe consider digitizing it so that people can view it on my website. But other than that, that's all for that grouping there. And then moving along here, we have a small grouping of items I picked up at a local antique store. So for starters, we have just this sailor's portrait photo from what looks like the 1960s or 70s. Nothing particularly special. I paid $1 for it, so, has a tear, not really worth anything, but thought it was neat. This item is actually pretty significant. So this is a photograph of a Union Civil War veteran with his veteran's jacket, hat, and you can see the Grand Army of the Republic veteran medal on his chest. Not to mention, it's a pretty nice portrait photo with a nice background. It's a clear photo. So I paid $12 for this photograph. Civil War is a little out of my expertise, so I was expecting this photograph to only be worth around, $20. But I had a friend of mine that is pretty experienced in Civil War, history and buying and selling artifacts. He said that he can get $80 to $100 on a regular basis for photographs of this grade. He believes that this photograph was taken pretty soon after the war, probably the late 1860s or early 1870s. And I'm super surprised. This was an awesome surprise find. I stopped by a local antique store on the way home from work one day, and I had no idea. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for these in the future, but that was a great buy and super cool too. Now, moving along here, we have this invasion map, and this isn't anything military. This is from the Cleveland Press. This was something that would have come in a newspaper for people to see. And this is just a World War II era civilian, like, home front map type of thing. So, again, nothing super historically significant, but I thought this was cool, and I only paid like $10 for it. So I thought that was a good buy. Now, this item coming up here is not actually military related, but it is American history related. So this is a poster for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And this was a poster that I picked up at the same antique store. I found it folded in half around a piece of cardboard, shoved inside like a file thing in the basement of this antique store. I paid $8 for it. And just for somebody who appreciates American history, I thought this was very interesting to see this civil rights era poster accusing the FBI and CIA for murdering Martin Luther King and all of that. Now, of course, I'm not going to express my own beliefs on any of that. This is just for historical reference. But this poster I thought was super interesting, so I decided to purchase it. For those of you that don't know, the All African People's Revolutionary Party was essentially a more extreme splinter group of the Black Panthers, because they felt like the Black Panthers were not extreme enough for their beliefs. Now, this poster, I was just buying it as kind of like a cheap pickup that I thought was kind of interesting. But after looking it up, I could only find one recorded sale on the internet, and it was through like an official auction house. It wasn't eBay or anything like that. And it sold for almost $800. So I was, again, blown away. Same thing with the photograph. This was a great day for me at that antique store. I was completely blown away by the values of these items. Again, I paid $8 for this, and I saw one selling for almost $800. Now, to be fair, the one that sold was almost in mint condition, and as you can see, this one does have some condition issues. There's tears around the edges. You can tell at the top here that it used to be thumbtacked to something and was torn down, and it was folded into quarters. But I'd imagine that if I were to sell this, I could probably get, close to $300 or $400 for it. So this is something that I might consider selling to fund other militaria purchases, but this was just an amazing find and great luck for me. So happy to find that. Now, moving on, we have some books here. And a friend of mine works at my local library, and they get a lot of donations coming through. And for those of you that don't know, for library systems, at least in the United States, they don't really keep antique books. That's not their job. Their public library is just to take modern books that they feel people would be interested in checking out. So when they get antique books, they usually go into the book sale. Well, they're volunteers and also employees of the library system that are allowed to keep some of the books that come through, because there's just so many that they can keep some. And she grabbed me some really awesome books recently. So for starters, we have this condensed record of the Great War. This was published in the Cleveland area, and it is dated 1919. So again, another super interesting World War I era history book from the immediate post-war, which super cool, and you can't go wrong with free. This here is the pictorial history of the United States. If I remember correctly, this is dated to the 1880s, and it's in really rough shape, and there's this tag here that's closed-pinned into the actual binding of the book. But overall, again, it's just a really cool history piece. Not military related, but for free, I think that that's super interesting. And then the last book here is the Blue Jackets Manual. And this one's from, I believe, the 1980s. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head. Of course, I'll have that up on the screen. But what really stood out to me is that there were these certificates shoved inside the book. And here you can see that they are actually completion certificates for educational parts of being a Navy recruit in the Cleveland area. Here you can see this one's for completing his seaman examination, and this one is for completing his naval correspondence course. So these are two really cool certificates from, I believe, 1982. I haven't researched the sailor yet, but you can tell that this was his book while he was going through Navy training in the Cleveland area in the 1980s, and two of his certificates are still inside. So again, for free, to find something that's not only from a local area but is researchable, you just can't go wrong. So again, if you're watching this video, thank you to that person who got me these books. I'm looking forward to really having a chance to read them. All right, so coming up next, we have this World War II German item. And here you can see it's the Deutsche Arbeitsfront. And what's interesting about this is that this was issued by the NSDAP for the Deutsches Arbeitsfront, which, if you don't know, was essentially of one of the many official government working branches of the military. They were in charge of managing manufacturing and factories and agriculture and building bunkers and roads and stuff like that. Now, what's interesting about this is that this was a standards book that would have been issued to a factory to explain the government's national standards for producing whatever they're producing. So if we open the front cover here and you take a look, you'll see that it's all, like I said, manufacturing standards for drill bits and such. And that's the entire book. I paid $5 for this actually it was at a reenactment, and there were some vendors there. And I mean, for an original World War II era item, regardless of how desirable it is or what condition it is, for $5, I mean, you just can't go wrong with that. I was super happy to find this. I think it's going to make a great display piece. For the right now, I'm going to just keep it together and keep it on a shelf, but it's also a possibility that you might disassemble this book because of just the lack of value and honestly, major historical significance, and turn it into something more interesting. But regardless, this is great for a German home front display. So for $5, super happy to add this to the collection. It doesn't really have any much monetary value beyond that, but to have World War II history, I just can't go wrong. All right, so moving on here. This one is probably one of the least significant things. This is a 1944 dated U.S. Army mess kit bottom. As you can see, it's in terrible condition. It's incomplete. I bought this at the local estate sale that our local historical society hosts for $1, and that's about what it's worth. Even then, I probably wouldn't be able to sell this to anyone for $1. I'd have to give it away. When I first got it, it was completely black, and my guess is that it looks like it was lit on fire at some point or used to set fires in. But yeah, so it's still World War II dated. That's why I picked it up, but not anything majorly significant. So moving on here. So I went to a Facebook Marketplace listing, and they were having a garage sale. Little short story. The family that just moved in there bought it from a Vietnam-era veteran of the U.S. Navy, and he left a ton of stuff in the attic of the garage on the property. Lots of foot lockers, camping gear, military surplus, stuff like that. And they had originally listed just some foot lockers, and I was going to look at those. But it turns out they told me, well, there's even more up in the attic of this garage that we haven't taken down yet. So I went exploring up in their attic for about an hour and pulled down a bunch of stuff. And this is the stuff I found. So for starters, we have this, in compared to the last one, basically mint 1944 World War II era mess kit. Now, if I can get this open. You can see that it's complete with the silverware and a can opener even. And I paid $5 for this, which for those of you that know your U.S. military gear, know that that's a steal, to have a complete usable set. It's great for reenactors, and it's great for display. And realistically, I mean, this is probably a, like a $40 to $50 set of mess kit material there. So I was super happy to get that. And then here we have a spent live M83 smoke grenade. And again, this was something, I think I paid $5 for it. And I thought that it wasn't really going to be worth anything. You can buy those spent grenades for 20 bucks at most, and sometimes even less if you go to the right place. But apparently, spent live smoke grenades, even training smoke grenades, are actually particularly rare. And M83 was introduced in the 1980s, 1990s. But even this, I saw there was basically no sold listings for them. I found one website that sold one for around $30 or $40, and I saw one eBay listing, only one in all of the sold listings, that sold one of these for $50. A spent smoke grenade. So again, a really great buy on that. I had no idea that these were so collectible or worth money, but I'm happy to add it to the collection. It looks great on my modern combat display shelf, and fills a nice hole in the collection. I didn't have any smoke grenades until now. So now here comes probably my two favorite items. So for starters, we have this late World War II and Korean era aircraft part. So this is a P-80 jet fighter combustion liner engine part. Now, this was used in the General Electric I-40 jet engine, and that was, for those of you that don't know, that was one of the first jet engines used by the U.S. military ever. This was first developed in the 1940s. It was first field tested in 1944 and 1945, and then by Korea, it was one of our standard jet fighters. Now, engines for that, I mean, there was less than, if I remember correctly, there was only a couple thousand made, 5,000 made, whatever it is. I'll put it up on the screen. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was a very, very, very small amount. Now, think about today. How many of those engines are left around? If any of them, they're probably still in aircraft. And then how many of those aircraft are still around? If you think about it, not very many. So I bought this part from the same guy. There's actually already a video on my channel, the George Kai collection. I bought this from the same guy. He's also into aircraft, and he bought that part at some show, and he was ready to sell it because it was just taking up space. So I decided to purchase it off of him. And I didn't even realize how rare of a part it was, but I thought it was interesting enough that I would take the risk and buy it. I kind of at a loss for words. The way I take it, it's an extremely rare part to have any part from those planes, let alone something from the engine. And I actually found an original period photograph of somebody handling one of these parts with the engine in the background, so I'll put that up if I haven't already. But at this point, monetary value, like historical value aside, honestly priceless. This could be a great exhibit for a museum or something. But monetarily, I don't even know how to price this part because there's no sold listings anywhere. The parts for those engines are basically non-existent. So I have no idea. So if you guys have an idea, make sure to put it down in the comments or something, or email me, or visit my website or whatever. But I'm at a total loss for words with this. I feel super awesome to have this, and it's going to have its own video coming up. So that's all I'll talk about it here. All right, now the last item is a uniform jacket, actually. So let me just get that out and ready to go, and I'll see you over there. Okay, guys, and I'm back with the uniform jacket. So as you can see, this is a U.S. Navy uniform jacket here. And I picked this up in Mystic, Connecticut on our family vacation at the Mystic Army Navy Surplus store. So this, as you can see on the tag here, I paid $60 for this jacket. I thought that was a very fair price. You know, you see uniform jackets like this go for close to $100 sometimes, especially with these bullion patches, which I'll show you close-ups of in a second. So to be able to get that for that price, I thought that was fair. It's a little bit more than I would generally pay, but I was happy to add this to the collection. So my guess is that this is a World War II or possibly Korean War era uniform jacket. There's not much to show on the inside. As you can see, it's just black cloth. Here is the maker's mark here, Davis Clothing in Boston. And if you take a look over here, you have these beautiful bullion patches. So here you can see U.S. Navy. I unfortunately, off the top of my head, just don't recall what the official rank and position is of this patch. I'll put it up on the screen. But as you can see, beautiful, beautiful patch with bullion. Now coming down here, you can also see the service stripes on the sleeve, all bullion as well. And when I first saw it, like I was rifling through uniforms on a rack that they had. And then all of a sudden, this sleeve falls out into my eyesight, and then I see this beautiful vintage uniform shoved in with a bunch of modern ones, and I just had to take it home. I knew the value of it and all that, and it was a great piece. So I know this one was a little long. I apologize for that. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, and when you're in that area, hit the subscription button and notification bell. I have plenty of other videos just like this coming in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And also make sure to visit my new website, warhistorygeek.com, to see posts about my collection, see my archives, see digitized versions of documents and letters and all that from my collection. Lots of great resources on there, so just make sure to check that out as well. Linked in the description and on my YouTube page. All right, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!